can you love in spite of the pain? Can you keep your heart open to life even when there's pain present? That's what we're being asked to do at the moment. We are being given, as a collective and individually, lessons in unconditional love. We're really moving through a very potent stage of our awakening, where many of us are moving through a heart chakra awakening. So often as humans, we move through this experience with a contracted heart, with a guarded heart, with a sheltered heart, trying to protect us from further hurt and pain, because we've probably experienced hurt and pain in the past. And especially as children, if that wasn't dealt with love and care, it left us feeling deeply wounded. And so to avoid re-experiencing that level of pain, that level of perhaps insupport or insufficient support, we choose to keep our hearts guarded, and we choose not to move through life with vulnerability or emotional freedom. And the experiences that are arising for us now individually and within the collective are going to challenge us in ways that require another approach. So the traditional approach, when we're met with really intense emotions, let's say grief, for example, that's what I'm really being challenged with in my experience at the moment. Multiple losses, multiple deaths, figuratively. Very much a dissolving of my world in almost every respect, a dissolving of what has been known and comfortable and felt safe. That is very much dissolving. And any change, any sense of loss, growth itself can manifest as grief. It can be experienced as grief. And grief, along with shame, I would say, are some of the densest and most difficult emotional experiences to sit with and be present with, because they are so unbelievably crushing. It feels, when we're experiencing grief, as though we are being flattened, bulldozed. Our hearts are being steamrolled over, and it can feel very destructive to the heart to experience grief. And I think that's often why it comes in waves, because I think it would just drown us if we experienced grief all at once, the pain of grief. But what I'm observing throughout this process, as new experiences come up and challenge me and perhaps trigger this grief within me, what I'm realizing is that my normal default conditioned response to contract and withdraw and say, this is too painful, I don't want to experience it, that's almost too painful to do. Because on top of the pain of experiencing all of this loss that I'm experiencing, all of these changes, withdrawing from life and guarding my heart further feels almost unbearable, because there's just nothing left of joy, of love, of light if we live that way. And so the approach that I've taken, which has been quite transformative, is instead to say, can I love? Can I choose to love? Can I choose to be kind to myself and others in spite of this pain being present? And I'd like you to consider that for a moment yourself, if you're also moving through pain or discomfort, challenging situations, perhaps overwhelming emotional situations. I'd like you to just notice in your heart space right now if there's a sense of contraction, of withdrawing, of it's not safe, and I need to pull away from the people and experiences that I'm meeting. It feels counterintuitive to say keep your heart open when we're experiencing pain. But what if in fact that's the antidote? Pain is inevitable in this human experience. We can't avoid it. We can try and deny it, but it doesn't ever go anywhere. We have to re-experience it at some point when we are re-triggered in life by other changes. And so as our consciousness evolves as a collective, we are moving more towards an open-hearted, deconditioned way of living, where we no longer live as the contracted, separate, hardened self. We are slowly being dissolved. That sense of separateness from the whole is being dissolved. And the way that life often does that is by cracking us open. There's a Rumi quote, which I'm paraphrasing, which says something like, you have to keep breaking your heart over and over and over again until it breaks open. And that is what is being asked of us now. Life might be breaking your heart. It's certainly breaking mine. I've felt more grief in the last few weeks than I have possibly in my entire life. And I'm fortunate that I've experienced death, but not the death of a close family member. So this is probably as close to close death as I've got. And it's an experience, and it's an important experience for me. And I'm noticing that there's so much grace, and there's so much peace, and there's a real sense of being contained by love when we choose to keep our hearts open in spite of the pain. So this is only a brief message, a brief sharing, a brief reflection. I will be putting out a video soon about the energies that we can expect for 2022 and perhaps things we can do to prepare, and how we can approach this unparalleled year that we're going to experience as a collective. But in the meantime, I invite you to really be still for a moment with yourself, especially if you've been moving through a lot of challenges, as a lot of us have been. This is the process now. We're going to continue to be brought to a boil, and it will not abate. So we really have to move beyond this idea of things will die down soon. You know, if I can just power through with this guarded heart, if I can just soldier through, I'll make it on the other side when things die down. We haven't even seen the storm yet. We're just feeling the initial breezes of what's to come. This isn't a storm. And the storm isn't anything to be feared. It's necessary for our awakening. But we need sufficient tools to be able to weather the storm that's coming. And one of the most sacred tools we have available to us is an open heart, is a heart full of love in spite of the conditions around us. This is the nature of unconditional love. It's loving without condition. So that's what's being asked of us now. Can we love without condition? Can we love ourselves in spite of the pain and maybe shame that we feel? Can we love others in spite of the pain? So ask yourself, reflect on that, let that saturate. And perhaps when you meet a challenging experience in your reality or within your own inner world, can you just consider the possibility of keeping your heart open to love? Sending you so much love from my broken heart at the moment, my broken but really hopeful and somewhat peaceful heart. And I'll see you again really soon.